Hello there. It's been a while since I made my last tutorial video, and this one is in English because I want to have like a broader point of view. Maybe I can help some people in this case. I don't usually do like fundamental tutorials because I believe there are so many people doing this already, and they are so well documented that it's kind of useless for me to talk about this. The internet now is so vast and everybody can find what I'm going to say today. But if this video reach your feed, then this means that I might give you a good fresh perspective on it. When you're starting to make sculptings and create heads from scratch, and even when you are working with a base mesh of a head and you start sculpting on top of it to make a great likeness or great sculpt or even a simple style, it's to to understand your fundamentals, to practice your fundamentals, and not only that, but these fundamentals is something that you need to polish over time, over and over again. What I'm going to talk about today is about making the planes of the head. And my workflow, while it may look simple to some and complicated to others, I have to give credits where it's due. This is the way that Ryan Kingsline, the father of ZBrush, as I like to say, to call it, makes the head, and it's something that it's very useful and very important. Now, we always start from a sphere. If you are making a head from scratch and if you are learning, it's always best to start from spheres. When you are going to get to a better stage in your career and you are going to enter the production environment, you most likely will not start from a sphere, you will start from a base mesh that already has like some facial expression in there, some basic proportions that you need to change to figure out your concept, be it stylized, be it realistic. But when you are starting out in ZBrush and you are starting out in sculpting, especially, it's very important to start from a sphere because otherwise you will not really understand how how sculpting works, how to feel the shapes. I really don't like talking about the technical bits and pieces of sculpting and technical bits of pieces of using ZBrush because there are already so many tutorials in there. But what I'm gonna say is that in my entire career, I've used only 6 brushes at best, most likely 3 brushes most of the time, but 6 for a great deal of elements. For example, one of the brushes that I use is the this is the brush I use. I've already talked about this in my older video on how to enjoy sculpting in ZBrush. If you have not seen that, I suggest to take a look. But I'm using the clay build-up brush. I've used this so many that I got used to how it feels, what pressure to use to make the shapes and whatnot. And if you don't like this ugly look, you can make it look nicer and better. If you go to stroke, you go to modifiers, and you have this roll distance. If you set it to 2, the brush stroke is nice and clean. It's beautiful. The second brush that I use is from Rankings line brush set. It's called Ball Stylus. It's basically like clay build up. If you go to clay build up, set the roll distance to 2 and make the alpha use the alpha 06, you can get that same type of brush like this one. And another one that I use is the move brush. This is very important when you are blocking out proportions. You can make the move brush very large and do very drastic changes in your sculpt. And then I'm gonna use the knife brush. For most of my years I've used the dance standard, which is BDS dance standard, which works great. But ever since I've found out about Ryan King's line brushes, I'm using the Ryan King's line Knife Soft, which is basically a dance standard but softer. It is very great when you are making like tiny details and you want to make scratch and so, but if you are making a brush that is very large, you can make like really nice shapes with it, very organic shapes. The sixth brush I use is Trim Dynamic. This is coming with ZBrush by default. It's great. And the last brush that I use is the standard brush, which it has its uses sometimes, but it's not a brush that I use most of the time, so I put it on. I put a shortcut on the sixth number key on my keyboard. I have my shortcuts in the order that I use these brushes most often. That being set aside, I'm gonna block out this window using tab, and you might not see me use look at this for a long time because that's how I work. Gonna make the sphere smaller, and I'm using the Dynamesh, and the way I'm using Dynamesh is by using a very low resolution. You'll see that my active points right now are like eight, yeah, between something between 8,000 and 9,000 points, and this is like the density I want. I don't want a very large density. I don't want this this sphere to be like this super dense and be able to make like super fine details, because when we are working with high density meshes, you will get lost in the details. Every brushstroke, even if it's like a big brushstroke, you will have to clean it up with many other brushstrokes. It's not gonna be fun. And when you are working on the fundamental shapes, it's gonna make your life a living hell. So I'm using a very low density, and you'll see that when I make a brush stroke and I smooth it out a tiny bit, it's becoming so clean. Now, when we are talking about a head shape, you need to think about, you have the sphere and you go from the sphere to the side and you start blocking out the chin of the head. Like in Lumi's method, you often see making a sphere, and from the sphere you draw out the chin, something like this, and this will give you like the cranial shape and the facial shape make set up in two planes. This is basically what we are going to create in the side profile. So you go with a move brush. I always use a big size in the beginning, because otherwise making small changes is gonna make your work hard. So big changes, we have the move brush, and we already have like a great deal of information. Let's make the top of the back of the head a bit squarer. And when we are working with this shape, we want to create like the cranial shape. So you have the big sphere, you have the face. From this face, you go in here, and you need to have like the chin shape happening. So we need to get rid of some of this volume. And to do that, you can just use move brush. Now going back from the front, we need to adjust the shape of the head. Usually when you see the shape of the head, most of the people will tell you it's like a neck. So that's what I'm going to say as well. We need to make like this type of shape, but something like this. So what I'm going to do with move brush, a large move brush, we're going to make the back of the head bigger and the front of the head smaller. And now we can adjust the jawline as well. And we already have like a great blockout of the main volumes of the head. We have the jaw in here. And if we push this up a tiny bit, we also have the chin. And from this point, you just need to make it look like in your reference. Always use references. I have my references on the second screen, but I can't really show them to you right now. Now, you see me that I use the move brush a lot in this first part of the process. And that's because it's gonna help me get the proportions of what I want to do. Now let's talk about the neck a tiny bit. You need to mask it out, invert the mask and get it out there, something like this. You don't uh, you don't want the neck to be too much into the back, but not also maybe I want it to be a bit more like this. So I'm going to undo, modify a bit the mask and try again. And that's a bit more of what I desire right now. Keep in mind, for simplicity's sake and for fundamentals, the neck needs to be looking a bit more like a cylinder. So when making the neck, think about creating a cylinder. You can even use the insert mesh brush to make it a cylinder. And at this point, even though it looks very simple, we have a great deal of information. We have the cranial shape, and we have the facial area, like this is gonna be the face plane. We have the jaw in here, we have the chin in here, and from this point we need to figure out where the eye is gonna happen. And from this point I'm gonna start blocking out some shapes with the clay build-up brush. And you'll see me that I make this triangle shape. This triangle shape will give us a lot of information. So at this point we have the brow ridge, the brow area. From this corner we can sketch out the temple area. If we go a tiny bit in here and we carve out this piece in here, we will get the zygomatic bone happening. And from this here, you can also block out the shape of the nose. So it's already giving us a lot of information. And you don't need to make it overcomplicated, but making it simple is what's gonna be the hardest part. This might take a few months. It might take a bit more. It might be like something you can understand and learn in a single day, but making this shape, if you need to make it right, you need to make it with structure in mind, with proportions in mind regarding your reference, and only then you can add details on top of it. And from this point, I can block out the shape of the nose. Most of the time, that the way I like to do it is mask out where the nose area is gonna be, invert the mask, and use a bit of move. So we just pull out the nose, and this is already giving us a lot of valuable proportions and information right now. Because if we dynamesh again, you have the shape of the nose, the size of the nose, and the bottom of the nose. From this, making a full-on nose is gonna be a piece of cake. And now talking about the side of the head, as I said, I'm gonna do like a few carvings. And first one is gonna be this. This is gonna give us the zygomatic, the cheekbone. Second one I'm going to do is gonna be this. This is giving us the temple area. And now we can keep moving from this point. We have already the brow area, the zygomatic area, and from this point, if we add some volume in here and make it round, we have the muzzle of the face. This is where the mouth is gonna happen. After that, we can add a few more lines. For example, one important line is gonna be this. And this is gonna separate the rest of the cheekbone from the mouth area, and this line also is gonna give us like the muscle from the from this bone to this bone, and this is already giving us so much cool stuff that we can work with. Now we can smooth out this shape, make this shape straight, because if you look at any skulls you're gonna look at, you need to know that you have the egg shape. So we have like this shape happening here. If I can draw it, you have the sphere. From this sphere you go down there, and then you make the jaw. From this point, if you go from the highest point in the back to the lowest point, and then you can cut it somewhere in the middle, you have this line here. This line is gonna be where the zygomatic bone is gonna happen. If you look at most of the skull anatomy and skulls out there, you see that this line is usually straight, is a straight line happening. At this point, you will see the ear hole, and then you can add in the ear, and I do this a bit too much. Another thing that you will see in most anatomies and most courses is that this area here is always going to be smaller than this area here. The largest bone on the face is going to be the cheekbone. And now from this point you can start carving out a bit more of these elements, and we can make the arch of the of the eye hole. I don't really have the anatomy. Sorry about that. I don't really have the anatomy names of the things that I make because learning the names of the elements does not make you a great sculptor, but learning the shape of them and their relationship is what's gonna help you achieve greatness. That's my point of view. Because otherwise, we all be doctors and not sculptors. Can now smooth this shape. And to finish off this blockout of the face, we can do one of the things. First things first, carve out the eye hole. Make sure the shape is looking great from all angles. And then you can add in a bit of volume to suggest where the eye should be. Now to block out the lips area, what you need to do is draw out the shape of the lips. You can use the standard with that, and then draw out the separation of the lips. Like you have the upper lip here and the lower lip here, but after that, the lower lip needs to be separated from the chin area, and that's what we are going to do. And because we already made like the previous shape here, we made this shape happening here. When you start to carving out the lips, you'll see that the volumes and the proportions are already having the right curvature of the mouth, because when you have the curvature of the mouth, you most likely will see this happening here, because you have the teeth happening, and on top of the teeth you have the lips, and the lips follow the shape of the teeth. And my friends, this is what you will end up with. From this point, you can, if you make this properly, you can increase the resolution and start making this into a real head shape. If anyone of you are interested in more anatomy talks about how to get from the blockout shape to a more refined and a proper sculpt, please let me know. If I see enough comments and enough likes on this one, I might end up talking about how I think about when you're sculpting the face area.